Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the surreal Charles Coulombe.
Surreal.
Surreal, because you're dreamlike. You're,
Dreamlike.
You're like a Salvador Dali painting.
Physically, emotionally, or spiritually, or all three?
All three.
Well, okay. I don't know quite how to react to that, except that roses are red, violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I. I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
But there's great stuff going on, though.
There's some great stuff. Firstly, I have to apologize for our heavy perspiration. Suits at the top floor of the Tumblr House building sort of worked out a money-saving deal where...
Oh, is that what they're calling it?
When it's triple digits in California, in order to save money with the electricity company, they turn off the air conditioning gets turned off for everything below the 40th floor.
Yeah, below the 40th floor. Everything above, it continues.
It continues.
And let me tell you something. That works merry hell with the commissary.
I know.
I tell you though, Mario got sick of the chef. He got sick and tired of my bagging on the fish. So he showed me something special. He said, Mr. Coulombe, you always go out and you say, oh, it's rotting and turning to mackerel. Let me show you. We got fresh fish. You know what he showed me?
What? 27
new cans of tuna. Bought today.
That's some fresh fish, all right.
I'll bet. Salad niçoise, here we come. No, he takes pride in his work, that's for sure. But no, we've got a lot of important and interesting feasts this week. Last Sunday, was St. Mary Magdalene. And she's great. Not just because she epitomizes the ability to be forgiven no matter how screwed up your heart, but also because of her part in the early evangelization of France, specifically Provence. She and a bunch of other people, St. Lazarus, St. Martha, and so on, came over, St. Joseph of Arimathea, came over to Provence early after the crucifixion and began evangelizing. Though St. Joseph of Arimathea lit off to Britain.
It's interesting, the Holy Land has such a special connection to France. The House of Loreto. Isn't that in France?
No, it's in Italy.
Oh, I keep messing that up.
Oh, don't worry about it. So does Father Thurston, who tried to deny it. So you don't mess it up as badly as he does.
Aren't there more connections with France, though?
There are. France does have a national, what's the word I want? Like a hotel at Loreto. But the French, ever since the time of Charlemagne, the French have tried to exercise a protectorate over the Christians in the Holy Land. And to this day, the French Consul General in Jerusalem has all sorts of liturgical privileges. And a number of the religious communities, by which I mean religious orders, in Palestine and Israel, are under the direct protection of the French.
And Mary, I don't remember what apparition, but I thought she called France the eldest daughter of the church.
She did.
Which is a great honor.
Well, it is. And what it comes from is the fact that of all the barbarian kingdoms that emerged from the wreck of the Roman Empire in the West, the first one to convert to Catholicism were the Franks, the ancestors of France.
Yeah.
And so, because of France being the oldest daughter of the church, the King of France was called the oldest son of the church. Reflecting that. So now, of course, it's a whole different matter, but that's how it was then. But there's her. And then there's St. James, who, of course, is the patron of Spain and to some degree of Portugal. Santiago Matamoros, the border slayer, whose tomb in Compostela is to this day the site of tons of pilgrims coming from all over Europe and America and elsewhere. And he, too, is a reminder of how much Spain and Portugal have done for the faith. St. Mary Magdalene reminds us of France. Well, so too does St. James remind us of Spain and Portugal. And then tomorrow, the 26th, is St. Anne's Day, the grandmother of our Lord. Here again, there's a French connection. Because her shrine, her body is in France, in Provence, where it was brought by the crew I spoke of about St. Mary Magdalene. There's another big shrine of her in Brittany, Saint Anne d'Auray, and in Quebec, Saint Anne de Beaupré. And in New York, there was a beautiful shrine to her that was destroyed by the last cardinal who wanted the property sold, get the money out of it, which he did, I'm sure. But the shrine itself was moved to the French-Canadian parish in Manhattan, Saint Jean-Baptiste on Lexington Avenue. And there is a shrine of St. Anne, complete with a relic, here in the LA area.
Where?
In Santa Monica.
Oh, okay.
It's called, this is very clever the way they conceal these things. You ready?
Ready.
The Shrine of St. Anne.
Okay.
They knew you'd never look for it under that name. So, anyway, so that's St. Anne. And there we have it. That's our proto news. July is coming swiftly to its end. By the time you're seeing this, it will be just about July the what?
Oof.
It won't be quite.
This is hard.
It'll be July the 30th, I think.
Something like that.
So, this is the last broadcast of the penultimate month of the show.
Yeah, boy, I tell you.
The end of an era. The changing of the guard.
Yeah, and our questioners are starting to get frantic and panicky a little bit. As far as the show was continuing indefinitely, they thought they had time, but now that we've announced, it's ending, they're all starting to panic.
Even the cucks are giggling.
Yes. But so I just want to tell you guys that I just looked at our questions folder and there are hundreds actually of questions that we have in the backlog. So it didn't seem like a lot at the time because we get a couple every day.
It's true.
But it turns out a couple every day over time turns into a lot.
Especially if you don't address them.
Right. So I've put in a lot of questions today. We're going to try to do our best to answer as many questions as possible, but we just can't get to everyone's questions.
No. What can I say? And by the way, one of you who said, I forget who it was now, but someone sent a note sending his regards not just to you, not just to me, but to the girls in the secretarial pool, the guys in the motor pool, the maintenance and gardening staff, the commissary crew, really everybody, even the suits. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was very nice.
Yeah, it was touching.
And I want you to know that everybody here at Tumbler House appreciated very much your everything, because you understand there's a certain amount of resentment toward Vinny and me here, because we're like the public face of Tumbler House. But behind us is this whole army, the overpaid and underemployed suits and all the rest of them. And even though they've turned off the air conditioning on us, I know they're not doing it to punish us.
Not right. They're just looking out for the company, the cost savings.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The 40th floor is nice and cool. Speaking of which, as soon as we're done with the show, why don't we go have a look at the contemplation garden?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be great, because that's the 43rd floor. So.
Yeah, that's up there.
Yeah, so we'll go up there.
Yeah.
All right, but right now we've got to just sweat through this.
Yes.
All right, what do we got?
All right, now this is a request from you. You said ask the worst question that we received.
All right,
so
I did.
I'm using my own discretion on this one, and in my opinion, this is the worst question we've ever received. Are you guys ready?
I am. I can't speak for anyone else.
This is from Freelance Autist.
Well, it's a good thing he does it freelance. I mean, I know people with autism, and it's one thing to have them in public employ, in elected office and so forth. But doing it freelance, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
He says, Charles, Can you tell us where Vincent has hidden the bodies of his victims? Furthermore, can you really be so naive to think you will be able to escape his murderous rampage by cowering in an isolated elementary school somewhere in Vienna?
Well, that has two parts. As to the first part, I can tell you exactly where he hides them. It explains a great deal of the creative recipes used by the commissary. There's something about corpse and surprise that, it's really amazing. Long pig, Caesar salad with long pig, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, as far as my being able to escape him successfully, yeah, actually, I doubt I'll have any trouble hiding out in that wretched little elementary school in Vienna.
Well, you're a cash cow. I mean, who kills the goose that laid the golden egg? Hello.
Well, the guy did. That was the point of the story.
well, maybe some people learned from that story.
I hope so.
Okay.
Obviously not the people who turned off the bloody air conditioning, but never mind.
Right.
Anyway, no, so there you go. There's your answer.
Yeah, so, I know Freelance Artist has been doing all these comments, and I've been, they're fun, and I've been enjoying the shocking nature of the comments. But, on some level, Freelance Artist scares me, which is why I've given his name and physical description to our security guard at the Summer House building, Tyrone.
You think that was wise? Don't get me wrong, Tyrone is a great guy. He's wonderful. A little undertrained.
Well, yeah.
A little inclined to shoot from the hip, and I mean this quite literally. You remember that? You remember the couple that ate it last week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they weren't prowlers; they were delivery boys.
Well, but that's because Tyrone. I mean, I like Tyrone because he protects our peace of mind. So I'd rather he err on that side rather than the not cautious side.
Possibility. Well, that's true. That's true. The only thing more frightening, though, than his lack of training is the fact that he's the head of security training as well as head of security. Now, you can't pass out what you don't have. When I heard him say on the range say, "Shoot to kill, boys, let God sort them out," I wasn't quite sure what I thought about that. Don't get me wrong. I remember his mom told me, he's a good boy, a little quick-tempered, but a good boy. And when somebody's saying your grandmother tells you that, it means a lot worse.
Yeah.
But no, God bless Tyrone. I've never heard anyone complain after being interrogated.
Right. Yeah, that would never happen.
No. Well, industrial espionage, ladies and gentlemen, is a problem facing every major company like Tumbler House. And I'm happy to say that our man Tyrone Kingston, he is on the job. And if you find yourself here and are tempted to do a little industrial espionage, look at your fingers and ask yourself how valuable they are to you. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So next question is from Troll von Schmuckela.
Oh, there's a name for you. Troll von Schmuckela. I think I know him. Legion for here are many.
Okay. He says, "Dear Charles, this is a serious question.
Oh heavens, with a name like that, how could it not be?
I have heard of the bones of giants found in various parts of the world, including in North American burial mounds. Even Abraham Lincoln believed in them.
Very true.
You have talked about how all people have a story of the flood. They also have stories of giants.
Yes.
What do you think?"
There were giants on the earth in those days.
What?
That's in the Old Testament.
Oh, okay.
There were giants on the earth in those days.
Oh, so you're a literalist. You're a fundamentalist.
In the sense that I sit on my fundament, yes. No, I mean, it's one of those lines that's just tossed out there. And, again, as he very correctly alludes to, when you've got a universal folklore motif, it's very difficult for me to believe there's absolutely nothing in it. I mean, it's that simple, really.
Yeah.
People don't usually sit around making up stuff that has absolutely no foundation in anything. So, I would tend to think that there very possibly have been races of people that are larger than we are. But I wouldn't care to speculate about anything about them, because I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. But there's your answer, Schmuckala.
Okay. Next question is from Patrick DeSantis. Dear Charles, can you explain the sin of gluttony to us? At what point does drinking or dessert become sinful?
Well, yes, it's extremely enjoyable. No. What I meant to say was, well, gluttony, of course, is overeating. When does it become a sin? When it becomes your sole object in life. I mean, what is the basic problem with sin? It diverts you from the pursuit of God. Now, if you're constantly stuffing yourself all the time, the last thing you're thinking about is God. I mean, we all of us, given the obesity problem in this country, we obviously, all of us, suffer physically from overeating, but that's not the question posed here. When is it a sin?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's a sin when it diverts you from the things of God. Now,
that's hard to. I mean, there's such a graduation there.
Well, there is a graduation, but I can tell you another thing about it, and that is, I try to keep Lent and Advent very strictly. And by that I mean no meat and one decent-sized meal and a snack a day. I find that although I'm hungry all the time and I'm constantly longingly looking through restaurant windows, to other temptations, particularly the lustful kind, really tend to dry up.
Right, because when you do it, you're interested in food. It's like, oh man, I want a cheeseburger.
Yeah, chicks and ice, but wow, that steak.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I mean, obviously, when you overindulge in food, there's a tendency to overindulge in other things.
That relates to one of my favorite lines in Sin Revisited by Solange Hertz.
Ah.
Because one of the things she talks about is the interrelation of sin, how sin feeds off each other. And the line I remember is, undue partaking of food leads to undue partaking of persons. The relationship between gluttony and lust. Because if you think about it, it makes perfect sense, because those are both appetites.
Gluttony.
Gluttony, yeah. So they're all related. It's all related. And then when your appetites aren't fulfilled, then you get angry.
Yeah.
Then you get frustrated. See, it's all interrelated, the spiritual life here.
So I would say, the best way to deal with food is when the church has enjoyed, I say past tense, because the church does not enjoy much of it anymore, where the church has enjoyed fasting, fast. Where she's enjoyed feasting, feast. I mean, that way you'll be doing a day of fast and abstinence on Christmas Eve, eating yourself out of your mind on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
But then recovering yourself later on.
Yeah. And, just even from a secular point of view, in terms of approaching happiness, you don't want your happiness dependent on how well you're satisfying your appetites.
No.
It's like, oh, well, gosh, I haven't had dessert, or I haven't, I didn't drink in, a week, and I'm just miserable. That shouldn't be the things that you're dependent on for happiness.
No. No, if you're dependent upon them for happiness, they've got too much of a hold on you.
And there is no end.
You never have enough.
You turn into one of my favorite villains. You turn into Shelob.
Ugh.
Because see, that was her evil. She just ate and ate, and a beautiful, incredible passage, but from Tolkien, on the nature of Shelob's evil. I mean, she just wanted to eat until she was completely bloated.
And ate the whole universe. Everything in it.
Yeah. She didn't care if wizards or rings, and towers.
She just wanted to eat.
Yeah.
You know what Shelob's husband was called?
What?
Elob.
Of course.
Well, all right. Anyway.
But one last thing, just so I get the plug, Come Down Zacchaeus We have a chapter from this book, one of my favorite chapters. It's called The Trouble with Men. What do you think of the trouble with men are, spiritually speaking? You said this too. You one of your adages, one of your famous adages. How do people understand men and women?
Well, men tend to be objective and women are subjective.
Okay, well, the line I was referring to, that you always say that I.
Oh, well, men are pigs, women are crazy.
There it is.
Yeah.
Men are pigs, women are crazy.
Yeah.
And so the big spiritual hurdle that men have, one of the big differences between men and women is men. We're pigs. We struggle with our appetites.
It's true.
Women don't struggle like men do with these areas.
Not usually. And the thing, too, about women is that, well, you know, there's an old saying, men will give love to get sex. Women will give sex to get love.
Mm-hmm.
And that, if you think of the two, I think in that sense, the male is a bit more disordered because he wants something that's really, he's basically willing to lie to fulfill his appetite. Whereas the woman is willing to fulfill the appetite for the man in return for something that, if it weren't for such a schmuck, would be an objective good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. But let's see here. One other thing, the neat thing that she touches on in this book too is she makes a biblical basis for this.
Huh.
And there's the other saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Yep.
And so she makes a biblical base. All these things, all these couples that happen. What is it, Ruth and Boaz? No, I forgot. But all these couples, what happens? Boaz.
Booze is another fellow.
Yeah. Whatever. All these couples get together through a meal.
Yeah.
Like the meal happens, and then it's it's the blossoming of a relationship. So I just thought that was interesting.
No, it's very true.
But Solange Hertz believes in equality, so there's also a chapter on the trouble with women. That's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex. But they're both on our blog, too, on Tumblr House Lounge.
Women are far more complicated than men. Men are pretty simple creatures, pretty easy to keep happy. Unless they're monsters, in which case there's not a lot you can do with them. But by and large, ladies, if you had any idea of how much power you have over the man in your life, you'd be a very happy lady indeed.
Next question is from Lisa. This is such a huge mystery to me. Why do you think God cooperates with embryo scientists whom he seems to allow to fertilize human eggs in IVF laboratories?
For the same reason he seems to cooperate with adulterous or fornicating couples when one of them gets impregnated. I mean, God allows free will to do whatever sort of mischief it wants to.
Well, I think what she's saying in this particular one, why she used this particular example, is because of the miracle of life. You know?
Yes, but the miracle of life is brought about by the human being. No angels do it. Doing it artificially is evil.
Okay.
But nevertheless, we have the power to do it because things work a certain way. And he does not usually, I mean, I could very well see some sort of a miracle whereby it all stopped working. But I have a feeling that one day we're going to wake up as though we had an enormous hangover at the endless catalog of horrors we have committed or allowed to be committed on our behalf.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, I don't really have an answer for you because God doesn't sit down with me and explain these things.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, okay, next 4 questions are from French guy number 1.
Oh, as opposed to number 2, number 3, and number 4.
Yeah, he's number 1.
All right.
Okay, his first question is, Mr. Coulombe, why are you so wonderful?
That is a question I have wrestled with for a very long time.
Really?
Oh, yes. I mean, it started when I was a child, and people would say to my mother, could we trade? Mothers would say that, you know. My mother was very protective, I should say that. Then, of course, when I was a young boy, and my mother always said I was above average, which I felt was great praise. No, honestly, why am I so wonderful? I think because I believe my own press. I'm full of myself. What appears like narcissism is really just self-acceptance.
That's great.
All right.
You're a model for us all, Charles.
I live for you guys. What else we got?
All right, second question. What is your opinion of the French Front National and Le Pen and the Le Pen family? Can you shed some Catholic light on one of the most successful nationalist movements in Europe?
Front National. Well, and of course, there was the unpleasant fight between Mademoiselle Le Pen and her father. To this day, I'm not quite sure what it was over, but it ended up with the old man being out of a job. But what can I say? I mean, not unlike Mr. Trump here and a lot of other parties elsewhere in Europe, the Front National deal with real issues that the French ruling classes do their best to ignore. If that doesn't change, I think that either the Front National or something much like them is going to end up in the Élysée Palace. You know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's hard to say because the Front National is very mixed. There are a lot of devout Catholics in it. But there are also a lot of Nouvelle Droite types and so forth, semi-pagans. And, it's hard for me to know what it will do if it ever gets to power. But I hope for the best.
Okay. Okay, his next question. What is your opinion on the restoration of the Russian monarchy? Which claimant, in your opinion, is the most legitimate or likely candidate were this to happen?
Well, I'm in favor of it. Number one. Number two, I would suppose, this will get me some annoyance from friends, but I would suppose the Grand Duchess Maria Vladimirovna.
That'll get you some heat?
Yeah, well.
Why?
But, well, because a lot of the Romanovs don't accept her. They're all morganatically married, and none of them are really eligible for the throne under the old house laws. The real question is whether or not her mother is, and her mother was a Georgian princess. The thing was, though, that Georgia was conquered by Russia in 1802, so does she still qualify as a member of a royal family? I don't know, I'm not Russian, but she runs all over Russia and the world, scattering decorations and so on. I have one.
So you're saying she's the most legitimate?
Yeah, and legitimate or not, she's the likeliest one to actually get it.
Oh, okay. Okay, his fourth question.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, and his efforts to protect the West?
I'm all for him. And you know, for those morons out there who consider him a fascist, there's a real fascist party in Hungary. It's called Jobbik. If Orban does not succeed, they will run the country, and then you'll find out what fascism is. Word to the wise.
That's a major Austro-Hungarian fascist propaganda right there.
And I'm glad that he and the new Austrian Chancellor seem to be such buddies.
Oh, see, there you go. Collusion.
And I'm happy that Czechia, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Croatia and Poland seem to be pulling together.
Yeah, under your terms, your fascist terms.
And I want to see the Archduke Karl restored as Emperor of Austria, King of Hungary, Bohemia, Slovakia, Slovenia, Croatia, Poland, etc.
Is that why you're going to Austria?
No, it's just
are you a part of this plot?
Oh, if only. If only. Actually, a friend of mine today said, you know, this Austria stuff is nonsense. You're going back to your home planet.
That's good.
I told her she was right.
Okay, the final question today is from our old friend Sylvain Durand.
Ah, Sylvain, comment ça va? Tout va bien, vieille botte?
You know, there was a period of time last year where it seemed like all Sylvain did was eat, sleep, and send great questions off the menu every single time.
Well, that's a good skill.
Yeah, I miss those times. But, okay, we have another question for him again.
All right. We are lucky.
You spoke at length about the virtues of monarchy, but I never heard you discuss one of the main objections against it. What about bad or incompetent kings? Everybody would love to be the subject of a St. Louis or St. Richard, but what if you get a buffoon like George IV, or a monster like Henry VIII? Isn't monarchy a bit like the lottery, where you never know what you'll get and there's nothing you can do if you lucked out?
Well, firstly, that presupposes a lot of things. The problem with the republic is that, at least in my experience, you can vote for different people, but somehow nothing changes. It's always the same garbage. That's why we still have abortion after how many Republican presidents?
That's
we have
funny.
gay marriage.
I've heard Putin say exactly that about, it's funny how we have all these different presidents, but they all have the same policy toward Russia, because he has problems with our policy.
Well, obviously he would do,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm talking domestically.
Yeah, domestically as well.
Somehow it all goes down the same stupid path.
It's interesting.
So you can vote for whomever you like, it's just nothing's going to change. Or as the late, oh God, I can't think of his name, he was a columnist for National Review, very funny guy. It's floating around my head and I can't come up with it. But he had a wonderful saying, which was that if voting really affected anything, it would be illegal. No. What happens if you get a bad king, a bad, or a moron? Usually, in times like that, they tend to get replaced or pushed aside, actually, by other members of the family. But what have they done? I'm going to share with you an insight that a person much younger had about this whole issue. It was a lot younger than me, but it was an insight that, due to my age, due to my having been brought up during the golden days of the American Republic, I would never have come up with on my own. And this is one reason why I don't really look down my nose at young people, because not being raised with the same presuppositions I was, they very often will apply the same principles and come up with better stuff than I can. What he said was, denial of the hereditary principle is actually disbelief in divine providence.
Wow. Interesting.
I would never have thought of that. But, what if you really do get the leadership you deserve that way? What if the person who's born to be your king is a schmuck? Now, there have been a small minority of them. And to be honest with you, the worst of kings, even Henry VIII, who I think was probably right down there in the running for worst of kings, couldn't compare with Comrade Stalin or Uncle Adolf. Couldn't compare with them. Mao. I mean, the worst of monarchs have not been as bad as the worst of Republican dictators. The best of presidents have not been as good as the best of monarchs. Mediocre is mediocre. But even the mediocrities amongst monarchs tend to be better than the mediocrities amongst presidents.
I see. So you're saying there's a higher ceiling for the monarchy, but there's also a higher floor.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I would definitely say that. So there's my answer for you. I mean, it can be unpleasant for you to live under such a king, but then it can be unpleasant for you to be an aborted infant. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, that's it for our questions today. Time for the book.
Dun, dun, dun.
Really excited about this book. 7 Lies About Catholic History by Diane Moxar. Published by Tan Books, so you know this is a serious book. This touches on a lot of important areas of history that Catholics, they've got so much trash thrown their way on these areas. And
these areas specifically.
We need to learn. We need to know how to swat this down. when it comes our way. So I'll just read off some of the chapter titles so you guys can know what's covered in these books. But we already know, to be honest. The Dark Ages. The Catholic Church, Enemy of Progress. A Crusade Against the Truth.
Ooh.
The Sinister Inquisition.
Rawr.
Science on Trial. The Church versus Galileo.
You bet.
A Church Corrupted to the Core.
That's right. Kind of like Carl McCarrick.
And last but not least, A Black and Expedient Legend.
That's for sure. Making Spade look bad. Well, this is good because it'll give you the facts in a quickly digested form right up there. And these are the kinds of things that you'll always hear tossed at you.
Yeah.
They never come up with new stuff.
No, they don't. And, these are pretty easy. Some of these things are pretty easy to... I mean, this book is going to give you the tools to pretty easily tear apart this stuff that comes at you. Because a lot of times, people who are saying this, they actually have no real knowledge of it. Because, I mean, nobody reads books anymore, so...
They hear the stuff, they watch Reverend Redbone come up with it, or, they get it on the internet, and then they toss it at you. Well, your church is so holy, how could you do this and such? Gee, I don't know. If your church is so holy, how come you're a member of it? Oh, no, I wouldn't say that in response. Would
I? Maybe.
No. But, no, it's a very, very good book, and as you say, it's a TED book, so you know it's the mark of quality. Next week we're going to have another book.
Well, yeah, we've got 2 books in the works, gentlemen. We've got, we're in the midst of publishing a book on birth control by Halliday Sutherland, which will have Humanae Vitae in it because it's the 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae. And after that, we have the much anticipated Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh by Ralph Adams Cram. For all you monarchists, this is the book. This Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh. It's the 3 things that society needs to be to embrace monarchy. This is a very important book.
Or even basic decency.
Well, that too.
I mean, it's basically. I don't want to steal from Cram's thunder, but there's a reason why we're in such a hole, such a sewer of moral weakness today, ladies and gentlemen. And Cram really speaks to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's
it? That's it.
So we got no more?
No more, that's it.
All right. So we're reaching to the 40th floor.
I know, right? Contemplation Garden.
Yeah, 42nd floor for that. Anyway, you guys enjoy the heat. We'll see you next week. And yes, tick, 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 tick. The time is coming. Hey, Carol Burnett, always used to sing at the end of her show, I'm so glad we had this time together just to tell a joke or just sing a song or have a laugh or two. Seems we hardly started when before you know it comes the time we have to say so long. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how these 2 years are beginning to feel.
Yeah.
Seems like we've hardly started. But we have a few weeks left, so get powered up and get ready. God bless, be good, and remember, if it's Monday, it's off the menu.
Yes! You nailed it this time, Charles. See you next time.
Bye-bye.